What is going on, everybody? This is Mike Hughes, and you're listening to Mike on the Mic, everything sports-related podcast. Today, I had my wisdom teeth out taken about a week ago. I wanted to get this in a lot sooner. He's also a busy man. He just got back from college. Kevin Lapka of Bears Nation Podcast is on today. Kevin, what's going on, my boy?
What's going on, Mike? I know we've been talking about this for a few weeks, but, there's not a lot of news going on, so it's always a good time to talk Bears football, and especially Justin Fields. So I'm really excited for this episode because, everybody in the whole fan base is giddy about Justin Fields and that whole draft class. So it'll be a good time, Mike. Good to see you.
Oh, it's always great to see, man. Always great to talk to you. And we were just having this conversation a few months ago, not even a few months ago, probably about two now, about Andy Dalton, and we didn't know what was going on with that. And, me and you were always, we're going to get Justin Fields. We're going to end up getting Trevor Lawrence or something crazy. Something's going to work our way. It has to. And it actually did this time. There were so many times with, Deshaun Watson and possibly getting Jimmy Garoppolo years back and all these other cats that we could have gotten in years prior. We were always very optimistic. But this is the very first time we said something. We said, we're getting Justin Fields. There's no question about it. And other people were like, we're getting Alex Leatherwood. We're going to get some kind of offensive tackle at pick number 20. But it finally worked our magic. And you going to Ohio State, loving Justin Fields, covering him for as long as you have. What are your initial thoughts?
Look, I hate to brag, and I've said this a bunch of times, but I really am one of very few, if not any, of people in Bears media who saw Justin Fields play live this year. Like, I saw the dude live in person, front row, like evaluating his game. Yes, I was like shooting video for the school, but I was still evaluating his game and doing all that. And I'm one of very few people who got to see it this past year. So I, out of everybody, know how special this guy is and what kind of player we got at number 11 and what kind of value we got. After the game against Clemson, we do this post-game show for our video thing we do at school. I work for the school newspaper. We do this post-game show, right? And after the Clemson game, Justin Fields throws 6 touchdowns with basically a broken rib, outperforms Trevor Lawrence. I know Mike is a Clemson guy. He doesn't want to hear that. He doesn't want to hear that Justin Fields outperformed Trevor Lawrence in the Sugar Bowl, but it happened, and they won, and they demolished Clemson. I was saying there should be conversations that Justin Fields should go number 1 overall after that game. There should be serious conversations about that in January. Now, God knows what happened between January and April. I couldn't tell you. I mean, there's really nothing that I saw there that would have pushed Zach Wilson ahead of Justin Fields. That would have pushed Trey Lance ahead of Justin Fields. I mean, Trey Lance didn't even play football last year. Like, what are we talking about here? But look, I'm sitting here not complaining at all because obviously that allowed Justin Fields to fall to us at 11. And this guy is a freaking dog. You have to understand a few things as well. Like, the physical aspect is there. We know that. Runs a 4.4 40, has a rocket for an arm, can do dynamic. He's one of the most dynamic quarterbacks you'll see at the collegiate level, and he'll be one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the NFL. But it's the mental aspect of his game that is what's so important. And, based off the recent history of the Bears and our previous quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, we should be very excited about that mental aspect of the game. You hear about that IQ test the IQ score test he got?
Oh, smartest guy in the fucking league.
Smartest guy in the league. He scored the highest on the IQ test distributed to 6,500 combine athletes in the past 10 years, whatever. Scored the highest. 130 score on the test. They say 100 is a good score. Patrick Mahomes got 110. Like, you're getting a smart player. And this is going to, lead into our talk about whether he starts week 1. But this guy's ready to go. He's ready to go physically, but he's ready to go mentally. Rookie minicamp happened like 2 days ago, Mike, and people were, lauding about his throws. He looked great physically, but the one thing that stuck out to me is somebody said he made a perfect throw to a guy, but a receiver made the ran route. Okay, ran the wrong route. Sorry. Right. Sounds like Anthony Miller, right? Sounds like something he would do. It wasn't Anthony Miller, though.
Like Anthony Miller.
It sounds exactly like Anthony Miller. It wasn't him, though, because it was rookie minicamp. I think it might have been Daz Newsome or another guy. But, instead of just kind of letting it happen, going to the next rep, he runs over to the receiver, tells him what he did wrong, and they work through the play together. Right. So you're getting a leader, you're getting a guy who's incredibly smart, and you're getting a physically gifted, one-of-a-kind quarterback. I mean, he's going to be a future All-Pro, and I'm sitting here, comfortably saying that. And quite frankly, I think it could happen in 3 years. So I'm absolutely ecstatic. This guy is the truth. I promise you, if you're going to hear from anybody, take it from me. This guy is the truth, and he will be an absolute stud. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can pull the receipts from 5 years from now. You can pull back from this, and I promise you, the guy will be a stud. I mean, he's just that good.
I was gonna just start it off by agreeing with you, but then you took a shot. Then you took a low blow talking about Clemson, and you had to go there. But I think it's an amazing point. Me, diehard Clemson. my buddy Chache, great Ohio State fan, you, Ohio State freaking student who covers this team. Who knows more about them than you? Nobody, not a soul. They might not even know stuff about themselves. You know more about them than that. It's to that point, and I respect, your reporting and all that to that level where I truly believe it. So everything you're saying, I'm taking fully, and I'm ingesting it, and I'm so happy with it, because not only do you know a lot about Justin Fields, but I feel like a lot of us do that have been covering football for this long. I mean, a lot of people, like you said, I mean, to drop that low in the draft, since we were, I would go as far to say since we were 16 years old in 2016, we knew it was 1A and 1B with Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, and you could flip it any way you wanted to. It's like a Jordan LeBron debate for some people. You could really, as long as you have them at 1 and 2, it's perfectly fine. But what happened is what always happens. It's the media. It's the hype that randomly gets built up about guys like Kyle Trask and Zach Wilson and Trey Lance, who arguably other than the fact that he's dating Colin Cowherd's wife, Colin Cowherd's daughter, I really don't know anything significant that Trey Lance has done this year, because he didn't play. So for me, it's one of those things where it was, the scouting day and all the things he did, I guess it just looked good. But we saw that with Mitchell Trubisky. That's the perfect example that I saw it. And this year's draft was exactly what happened to us in 2017 with Mitchell Trubisky, except this time it went in our favor, and we were the guys who got the stud. I'm not saying Zach Wilson, is going to be ass. I think he is, but for different reasons. It's going to be because he's on the Jets. It's because he's going to have. Do they even still have Adam Gase? I have no idea who they replaced him with. Yeah.
Robert Saleh from San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, the defensive coordinator. Yeah, that'll work out great. That's okay. But it's just one of those things. It was magic, bro. Like, it made no fucking sense to me. And I'm trying not to swear as much on these episodes now, because we're getting more family friendly, a lot more viewers. We reached 2,000 around the other day. I was really happy with that.
And a boy. But
it's one of those things where even the Broncos missed. The Broncos, who have Kyle Fuller, who have Bryce Callahan, and a great nickel, decided we don't want Justin Fields. We're fine with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. We'll take another corner. Kevin. And it just, everything just fell into place. And what a lot of people don't realize is if the 49ers didn't take a quarterback, Justin Fields probably would have been gone, because somebody would have taken Trey Lance, so on and so forth. If the Jets didn't trade Darnold, you really don't know what was going to happen with that. You don't know. The Bears might have whiffed and went with Trey Lance. Everything that went right. And there's no beating around the bush. I mean, it was just perfect. It was a Patrick Mahomes type situation, except this time we're the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm so happy to say that. And for my next question for you, it's one of those things where it's like, where do we go from here? What are we thinking? We already had this conversation about Andy Dalton. Obviously, I know where you're going with it. But what do you want to tell the people? What's happening from week 1?
Yeah, for week 1, Justin Fields is going to be the starter. I'll tell you that, because you've heard the reports from Ian Rappaport. He's gone on the radio in Chicago a number of times saying that there's a 5% chance that Justin Fields starts week 1, and Matt Nagy wants Fields to sit the whole year, and this and that, and this is the formula, and let's polish him, let's groom him. Well, first of all, that's not even a proven thing. Like, yes, it worked for Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers, but you have to look at those two situations. And people who argue against this will throw those two situations at you every single time. Well, let's look at those situations, okay? In Kansas City, you had Alex Smith, who played there for 4 years, knows the Andy Reid system, was a perfect mentor, and they were a good team with him. So They didn't have to rush Alex Smith or Patrick Mahomes. I think they went like 11-5 or 10-6 the year that Patrick Mahomes sat. Like, there was no reason for them to rush Patrick Mahomes in there, but also he was able to learn from a guy who had been in the system and been acclimated for a long period of time with their system and with their organization. Same goes for Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, years back, right? It's the same situation. Now you look at the Bears in 2021. Andy Dalton signed, this year, has never, he's played with Bill Lazor, but he's never played in the Matt Nagy system. Do I have the trust that he can maybe learn it? Sure, but can he teach it that well to a rookie? I don't know. Like, you can't compare those situations. So when people come to me and say, oh, it's the Mahomes Kansas City situation. No, it's not. It's really not at all. So the other thing people say is, oh, well, why doesn't he just sit like 4 games and then throw him into the fire after 4 games because I don't want him to face Aaron Donald in week 1. And I don't. Okay, we play the Cleveland Browns, who have Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney in week 3. So if you don't play him week 1, then what's their reasoning for playing him week 3? So you might as well just play him week 1. But people are saying, oh, let's set him 4 games and then throw him in, because I think that's probably like the average. You know, the average quarterback, like Mitch played like 4 or 5 games in 2017. Herbert played like 1 or 2, but that was because Tyrod Taylor got injured. But what evidence do we have in NFL history that a player sitting 4 games in the rookie season is conducive to greater success in the future? There's no evidence of that. That's not a real thing. So I throw him in week 1. I mean, people also have to understand, like, they have totally gotten away from like the playoff talk. And I understand that, because right now everyone's focused on the future and where we're going to be in 2022 and where we're going to be in 2023. But if you did want to focus on the now, which I like to do, because I like to see my team in the playoffs. Don't you, Mike? Don't you like to see your team in the playoffs? Why wouldn't you just start the guy who's going to be playing for you at some point eventually week 1, so you have a better chance of that guy starting and being more acclimated come the playoffs? I mean, if the Bears, like, everyone agrees, I think everyone in this city agrees that if you started Justin Fields week 1, whether you want to do that or not, versus Andy Dalton, they would end up with a better record than if they started Andy Dalton. Correct?
Period.
I mean, period. So you have nothing to lose. And the situations are different because people are still caught up in the Mitchell Trubisky situation and, you know, guys who aren't prepared, and, you know, most rookie quarterbacks aren't ready. And that's the narrative and that's the notion. It's different with this guy. Justin Fields has played in a national championship. Justin Fields has played in semifinal games for the college football playoff. Justin Fields was a stud in college or in high school who was on a TV show. This guy is prepared for the moment. He's not afraid of any pressure. So you can throw this guy in week 1, Sunday Night Football, under the lights against a great defense in the Los Angeles Rams, and he's going to rise to the occasion. I mean, that's just the case. So that's why, you know, that's my reasoning behind it, because people think the reasoning for me and for a lot of people is, oh, you just want to see the guy play because you're excited. Right. Yes, that's true, but you have to take in consideration the fact that this guy's been there in the biggest moments. He's a mentally tough, mentally smart guy who's going to be ready, prepared from a playbook standpoint and from a mental standpoint to show up week 1 on Sunday Night Football. It's one of the most watched games of the year. He's going to be ready for that, and he's the better quarterback. So this is all, like, right now it sounds a little bit far-fetched here as we're talking about it May 21st. But, Mike, come OTAs, come training camp, and you're able to compare Justin Fields to Andy Dalton, you're going to start to see Justin Fields come up here and Andy Dalton go down there. You're going to start to see that gap widen by the throws he's able to make because he's younger, by the speed he has, by his mobility, even the mental aspect, like the way he's able to pick up the playbook. Like, these things are going to happen, and we haven't seen it yet because they haven't been able to compete against each other because they haven't had the opportunity to do that. But once that comes, people are going to start to see it, and, you know, the noise for him starting week 1 is going to grow. I can assure you that.
And that's an amazing point that you made. And I love that you already brought it up, because that was my next transition, is the IQ test, is everything Justin Fields already has. The reason for me why you sit a player, and I played high school ball, you played high school ball for a short period of time. I forget how long you played because I know you were playing baseball too. But for me, and, you know, I'm not going to understand an entire offensive playbook and not an entire defensive playbook, but as a safety, my first year, I was watching a lot. I was learning a lot. And the main thing I fucking talked about in my own head was the kid who was starting in front of me was ass. That's the only thing I took from being on the sideline. And hey, if you're listening to this, I don't remember the kid's name. I'm sorry, but you shouldn't have been starting just because you were a senior. I took that job. It was gone. But for me, after 3 or 4 games, they throw me in. It's my job the rest of the 4 years. I maybe every now and then I went to, you know, I played a little nickel, but I learned nothing those 3 games I was on the sideline because there was nothing to learn. I knew the position. I had played it for years. For Justin Fields to say, for people to say that Justin Fields needs to learn this playbook, so does Andy Dalton. So what would you rather have? The guy who's going to be here for the next 5 years or the guy who's probably going to retire within the next 3? It makes no sense to have Andy Dalton playing. Then you could say, oh, well, Nick Foles knows it. Well, no, I watched Nick Foles play last year. He obviously doesn't. He obviously doesn't. And I don't care if Bill Lazor was, you know, his offensive coordinator in Cincinnati with Andy Dalton, because as we all know, Bill Lazor's not even close to running that show. He's not even touching it. He got to touch it for a few games towards the end of last year. And then what happened at the very end, Matt Nagy took back over. But yeah, for me, it's one of those things where it's like this kid, like you said, isn't like normal kids. And I hate saying that because I know it's a very biased take, but this kid's just built different. This kid, I've known him since I was 16, 17 years old. He's, like you said, he's been under the spotlight. He's been in the Sugar Bowl. He completely ripped Clemson, who is a respected organization. He played a respected teams. I mean, and for me, it's one of those things where people go, oh, well, Ohio State doesn't breed quarterback.
Oh, God, don't even.
No, I have to go there with you, Kev, because it's one of those things where, please, anybody out there listening right now, name where Patrick Mahomes went to college. I promise you half of his fan base can't do it. They don't know where he came from. They don't remember where he came from because it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't that big of a quarterback known school. And it's one of those things where it's like, you let him be. It doesn't matter where you go. The talent is there. Look at Lamar Jackson. Look at others. They come from places that aren't really like born breeders, and Hall of Fame talent at the position, but it doesn't mean anything. He went there because he took an opportunity because for whatever reason, Georgia thought starting Jake Fromm was an educated decision. Was probably one of the best things Justin Fields could do was get out of there because they would have definitely ruined his development. But it just makes zero sense to me to say that this kid has anything left to learn. The playbook, sure. But from what we're hearing, this kid knows half of this playbook already. And that's saying something with how Matt Nagy, stretches out that playbook. And I'm really excited to actually be able to hear about it for the first time in so long. You see, with me and you, we were always talking about it. Mitchell Trubisky is a different kind of leader than Justin is, in my opinion. Mitchell Trubisky is that hype guy. He's going to hype you up. He's going to hold your chin up when you're down. But he really doesn't do anything to teach you something. You know what I mean? Justin, on the other hand, like you said, whether it was Daz or not, I don't know exactly who it was, to run to him and to explain him what he did wrong at the age of 22, to have that confidence to be able to have those conversations is something Mitchell Trubisky couldn't even touch. He couldn't even grasp that. And I know Andy Dalton can't. And I know because Andy Dalton couldn't even stick up for himself in Cincinnati after being there for as long as he was. And I know we're going on a rant, but it's because this fucking whole conversation is ridiculous. The fact that you think that this kid's not ready. If Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace were willing on a year that they might get fired to sit this kid, it's just the worst possible idea. And like you said, we're not a bad team. See, now if this was, Joe Burrow, I probably, in all honesty, I would have sat Joe Burrow just because there was no offensive line help. They don't have that much offensive weapons. In his first year, I would have sat him, but he proved them wrong. He proved to be an amazing talent. Justin Herbert, I think he started a little more than 1 or 2 games, but he showed out.
Herbert started like 15 games.
Yeah, I know. Earlier, I thought you said he only started like 1 or 2, but I was like,
no, Tyrod Taylor started 1 or 2.
Oh yeah,
got injured, and then his backup started 1 or 2.
Justin, without question, showed everybody, and so did Joey B. Before the ACL injury, he was on his way of showing us too that rookies don't need to sit for a year. And whoever started that notion that they need to is ridiculous. And honestly, it's just scared football. This kid's been playing his entire life. This kid knows what he's doing. To be able to say, well, we kind of need to babysit you for a year. Listen, you only got 4 to 5 years on this deal before he can walk or before you have to franchise tag him. I want every second, every ounce of this kid because, Kevin, known you since we were in the first grade, this is our first time having a quarterback to be proud of, a quarterback that came in here and us not having to, make a statement to try to make it sound good. We don't have to make it sound good. It's right there. The pudding is in the cup. We know this kid is a dog. And it leads me to my next, transition, Matt Nagy. And, Ryan Pace did everything he could, Tevin Jenkins, Justin Fields, Daz Newsome, Khalil Herbert. What's the other kid's name? Larry Borum. You literally gave him everything. I think without a doubt, Ryan Pace saved his job for another year. He did everything we asked him to do by far. But the ball's in Matt Nagy's court. I don't want to hear dick from Matt Nagy. I don't want to hear we don't have a kicker. We got a kicker. I still think I want to see how Cairo plays with fans in the stands. I'm actually really curious about it. I have some theories on that, but that's a story for another day. We have the defense still. I don't care if Kyle's gone. We have a great cornerback core. Eddie Jackson going back to number 4. Hopefully that gives him his mojo back. We have, a revamped offensive line. David Montgomery is flourishing. All these guys are back. Allen Robinson's still here for the time being. So for you, what does Matt Nagy have to do? What does he have to change? Does he have to expand that playbook that we never got to see because Mitchell Trubisky couldn't handle it? Or do you think, it just has to completely change with Bill Lazor and him?
Well, it's not about expanding the playbook. It's not about, shortening the playbook or whatever that they talked about during Mitchell Trubisky. It's about conforming to your players and working with what you have. I mean, that's what Matt Nagy struggled with throughout his tenure with the Bears. Is he wanted to try to fit. I think this was Joe Judge from the New York Giants. He said you can't fit square pegs into circular holes. Like, you can't try to fit what you have into something that you don't have. Like, now is the whole issue with Mitchell Trubisky. And, I've gone on this show with you before and talked about that with Matt Nagy was, we thought, and I thought that Mitchell Trubisky could have been a capable quarterback had the head coach been competent enough to be able to work with him. Right. Now, the positives here, and I've been against Matt Nagy for a long time, and I wanted him to get fired at the end of the year. But I have to reopen that door. I have to reopen that door and be more open in my evaluation because of two reasons. Number one, after the first year in 2018 when he was here, he was completely out on Mitchell Trubisky after 2018. Completely out. Now, and that's not the way it should be. That's terrible. A head coach would do that, and everyone should be critical of him for that. But that's in the past now. He has a quarterback that he absolutely loves, absolutely adores, has confidence in. So let's give him another chance. Let's see what he can do. The problem, that disconnect between Mitchell Trubisky and Matt Nagy that was there, was simply a lack of confidence, and that's where you started to see that playbook, not be able to expand as much as you wanted to. Why did you see screen passes week after week? Why did you see them not taking shots downfield? Because Matt Nagy simply didn't have the confidence that Mitchell Trubisky would be able to make some of the throws that he wanted to make. So that's the fundamental difference now, is he has pure confidence in Justin Fields. He knows Justin Fields can make those throws. He doesn't have to worry about those things. That opens up an immense amount of things, okay? Because now he says, okay, now we can run this deep shot to Darnell Mooney, and we don't have to, fake it and run a screen. We can actually take that shot and be confident my quarterback is going to make that throw. That's the fundamental difference. So I'm glad that confidence is there, but he just has to work with the rest of what he has. So you have three dynamic running backs, right? You have Damian Williams, Tariq Cohen, and Dave Montgomery. What are you not going to do, Matt Nagy? You're not going to give Damian Williams no opportunities like you didn't give Mike Davis any opportunities 2 years ago. You're not going to give Tariq Cohen, no opportunities and put him in the wrong situation. You're going to put these guys in the right situations. You're going to, get Tariq Cohen in the right runs to the outside instead of stuffing him up the middle when he's a 5'8" running back who's not capable of running through the tackles. You're going to get him to the outside. You're going to utilize Damian Williams the right way. You're going to utilize your players the right way. And that's, if he does that, it's hard not to see this team be successful. Work with what you have. You have an unbelievable, variety of players on the offensive side of the ball. And I think we talked about this before, but I mean, you run through the list, and now you add Daz Newsome and Marquise Goodwin. Holy crap. I mean, This is an incredibly versatile offense. He has to work with what he has, be confident in his players, be confident in what he has. And all I'm saying, Mike, is I'm leaving the book open. Like, I've been critical of him in the past, but it's a new start. It's kind of a fresh start. Anything can happen now. I'm going to give him another shot before I'm critical of him again, with a quarterback that he fully believes in.
Right. And I completely agree with all of that. It was one of those things. The night before draft night, I was like, regardless if we get Justin Fields, I want this guy gone. I'm tired of him. I'm tired of the ego. I'm tired of the egomaniac kind of atmosphere that he's creating and the blame game and all of it. And I'm not saying, it's just the honeymoon phase of getting Justin Fields, but it completely changed the narrative, because not only do you come to the realization of this guy wanted Patrick Mahomes, he groomed Patrick Mahomes, him and Andy Reid and Alex Smith, they all groomed him. This, for the first time, we got a guy that Matt Nagy actually wants, not a guy that he wants to fill in the slot for a minute, not a guy that he wants to fill in for Mitch just for, a short period of time, or not even Mitch. We got someone who he wants to actually grow with and develop. And, he has a great relationship with Justin. I mean, how can you not? The kid's an amazing kid. I have not in my life met one person who had anything negative to say, even when, with the epilepsy thing, everyone was taking shots at him about it. It was still, every time someone brought it up, which was wrong in my opinion, there's no reason to bring that up because it's never affected him once, ever since like the 8th grade. He takes his medication. Everything's perfectly fine with that. I'm not worried. No one else should be. But my point is with that, they brought those things up, but still had so many positive things to say. Nobody ever said that that was a reason he should have dropped. And for me, I know I had to get that out there because it was fucking sickening that was even brought up or even a reason that he dropped. They blackballed him, no question about it. But hey, that's for us, and that's perfectly fine with me. Do him like that. It's cool. We'll give him 200 mil throughout his career. And we'll win 3 to 5 Super Bowls. I truly do believe that. Now, my thing is with Matt Nagy, and yeah, Kev, I'm saying it. If we keep this core, I have the list right here. Actually, let me pull it up on my phone. It's a beautiful list. It's one of my favorite lists right now.
I think you shared it on Instagram, right?
Yeah. Let's see. Roquan Smith, who is on a contract year, and if we're being completely real, if it comes down to it, Allen Robinson can hit the fucking door if we truly do need to keep Roquan. Roquan Smith, 24 years old. Cole Kmet, 22. Jalen Johnson, 22. Tariq Cohen, 25. Darnell Mooney, 23. Justin Fields, 22. Freshly 22. Tevin Jenkins, 23. James Daniels, 23. He's not on this list, but Larry Borum, I believe, is somewhere around 22, 23. David Montgomery, 23. Bilal Nichols, who had an amazing 2020 year, filling in for Eddie Goldman for some period of time, is 24. This core right here, to me, you can fill the rest, and obviously, you know, Khalil Mack for a few more years. You can fill the rest of the team. You can cut everybody off of this team and fill the rest of the team with veteran minimums and just decent pickups. And this is an 8-8 team, in my opinion, with these core guys developing the way they're going to be. And a lot of people think Jermaine Ifedi is going to be starting at right tackle. Please stop it. I definitely have Larry going at right tackle.
Really?
I truly do not want to see Jermaine on this starting offensive line. I just think he's just not there for me. I mean, it's still early though. Like you said, May 21st, something might change. But I've heard there's been issues in the past with him and Khalil Mack and so many others. I'm just tired of him. But with that being said, with everything, I don't care if it's Matt Nagy or not. As long as we bring in the right pieces, you can't fuck this up. There is no chance in hell. And I'm just so excited. We're talking about this, Kevin, for the first time. It wasn't on one of the sheets about the conversations we're going to be having today. But can we please talk about the very last time me and you were this excited about the Chicago Bears offense? Probably, it's been the Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey days is the last time I could truly think about it. And I wanted to ask you about, like, what is this feeling for you? Do you feel like there's a narrative changing right now to where we're going to have an elite offense and an average defense going into the next 5-10 years?
I think it's possible. I think that likely will be the case. And that's just what happens when you have, an all-pro quarterback in Justin Fields. But, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you need a capable defense to still win a Super Bowl. The phrase defense wins championships is still true in the sense that not the fact that you could have an elite defense and a below average offense to win a championship. That's not the case in today's NFL, but you can't win a Super Bowl with an elite offense and a below average defense. You still need a competent defense. And I have to trust that, with those young pieces that you mentioned surrounding, Roquan Smith, Jalen Johnson, Eddie Jackson, Khalil Mack, Nicholas Williams, they're not Nicholas Williams, but Al Nichols, like Eddie Goldman, those guys in the middle with pieces for the next 5 years, that they will be an above average defense. But the narrative, it is changing, because the ideology in the past 90 years of the Chicago Bears was, let's create a nucleus on defense and let's put pieces around that. Let's put average pieces around on the offensive side. Let's put the average pieces around there. Let's build around this part of the team and bring in, castaways or whatever, and putting it around that. Now, your nucleus is on the offensive side of the ball. Your nucleus is the quarterback position, and now you can build around that. That's where you start to see success in the NFL. Tom Brady and the New England Patriots built around Tom Brady for 15 years, and they were doing exactly what you just mentioned 5 minutes ago, picking veteran minimums off the street, getting guys, and year after year, we're being successful because of that, and they were able to build around the quarterback. The best teams in the NFL don't, switch quarterbacks every 4 years and, build around different parts of the team. They build around the quarterback, and everything falls in place based off of that. And for literally the history of the Chicago Bears, they have been able to do that. They literally have not had the capability to do that. And every 2 to 3 years, there was a conversation about who's the next quarterback. And it just puts a fracture in your franchise every 2 to 3 years, because it's such an important decision. And it's such a thing you have to figure out, that it leaves so many unknowns, where now, okay, you are comfortable knowing you have the quarterback position locked down for 10 years. Now you don't have to really worry as much, and you can pick up those guys and make good draft picks. And it allows for more sustained success. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think about it this way too, Mike. I mean, this is a situation, say we got Russell Wilson. Yeah, that would have been great, but we would be in the same cycle. We'd have a great quarterback for 4 years. And then after that, he'd be 37 or 38, I think 37 at that time. And you're having the same conversations most likely. Okay, where do we go next? He's on the decline of his career. So be grateful we have a young quarterback to build around for a long, long time, because that is how you win in the NFL. That's how you become a successful franchise. You build around the nucleus that is on the offensive side of the ball, and everything falls in place. I mean, Mike, it's the most important position in all of sports. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you have to nail that down before you do anything if you want to win the Super Bowl, and that's what they've done. So it's the narrative is changing. To answer your question, the narrative is changing.
Yeah, and it's an amazing response, because you made that perfectly clear. It's one of those things where Russell Wilson as a Chicago Bear just gets me going. I mean, I just wanted it so bad.
Yeah,
but
me too.
We had those conversations. We were like, all right, that's fine, but we're going to be completely shit out of luck when 4 years from now, Khalil Mack and Russell Wilson either want to call it quits, or, they might want to re-sign somewhere else or go back to where they originally came from, more Russell than Khalil. But you get the point. It was one of those things where it was like, short term, we will win a Super Bowl in the next 4 years with Russell Wilson. But how long is that going to last? And with this, I mean, we'll be 30 years old, hopefully, and Justin Fields will still be our quarterback, our QB1. And that leads us into our next conversation, is the NFC North. And who's looking like the best quarterback going into the NFC North, especially with the breaking news that we haven't had on YouTube yet. Aaron Rodgers requesting out of Green Bay. That is a possibility. What is it looking like? What's the NFC North looking like the next 4 to 5 years? What are your thoughts on that?
Hold on, let's not even talk next 4 to 5 years. Let's talk this year. I mean, Justin Fields is the best quarterback in the NFL. Or the NFL. I hope that was the case. Best quarterback in the NFC North this year. He'll get there. I mean, like, okay, Jared Goff and the weapons they have over there, and with Dan Campbell as the head coach, write that off immediately. He could be arguably one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL given his situation. I mean, without Sean McVay by his side, I mean, it's just not there. Kirk Cousins is nothing more than average, and Mitch Trubisky dominated him 5-1 against Kirk Cousins in his career.
I believe he's actually 5-0. I think it wasn't Nick Foles that got beat by him.
I think you're right.
I think you're right.
I think you're right. I think the Bears were 5-1 against the Vikings.
Yeah.
But Mitch Trubisky himself.
Trubisky's undefeated.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then, like you mentioned with Rodgers being gone, Jordan Love is a major question mark for them. I mean, no one.
Oh, we're talking Blake Bortles now.
Blake Bortles. I mean, how laughable is that? I mean, for all the shit that we have gotten as Bears fans for, the acquisition of Nick Foles 2 years ago and the acquisition of Andy Dalton and all the flack we got for that, it felt so good to kind of see the Packers fans kind of, get a little bit upset about Blake Bortles. But no, I mean, the outlook, obviously, in 4 to 5 years is he'll be the best quarterback in the NFC North, and they'll be the best team in the NFC North. But let's talk this year, Mike. I mean, this is when we talk about, the potential for them to make the playoffs. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers is not a Packer, which I think there is zero chance he will be, or maybe not zero, but low, I think it's like 5% that he will be a Packer, then how do they not win the NFC North? Like, I really try to go through the situation in my mind, and I don't see a single scenario where they don't win the NFC North. I mean, they've dominated the Lions the past few years with Mitch Trubisky. They've dominated the Vikings the past few years with Mitch Trubisky, and they should dominate the Packers without Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they should go 6-0 in the NFC North. They should absolutely dominate the division. And most of the times, like, yes, they have a hard schedule, but if you dominate the division, it doesn't matter what happens with the rest of your schedule, because the division games are always the most important. If you win 6 division games, you got to win probably 5 other games just to make the playoffs and just to win the division. So this will, I mean, the news could never have been, more perfect timing. The Bears get a franchise quarterback. and the other guy that prevented them from being the best in the NFC North is walking away from the
All
team.
in the same
Like,
night.
all in the same night. I mean, it was just arguably the best day in Bears history. That was the Super Bowl in 1985. I mean, I know that sounds like an over exaggeration, but if you look back at that day 20 years from now, and the Bears have won 5 Super Bowls, and the Packers have been garbage for 20 years, when it's 2042, you will look back at that day as one of the best days for Bears Bears in the history of their franchise. So, I'm thinking they win. I know this sounds like a stretch. Why not? How couldn't they win the NFC North for the next 4 years?
I think so. Yeah. For me, I just talked about it on the last pod. We were talking about the schedule for episode 100. And I thought nothing better than talk about the Bears, and we're talking about the schedule, and I'm doing my early May predictions. We don't know injuries, guys who get signed, trades, you never know what's going to happen. For me right now, and we're talking about it as Aaron Rodgers is playing in Green Bay. I said it, this is all hypothetical. If Justin Fields is starting from week 1, right now, I'm this confident in the Bears and going 13-4. I really am. I'll stand by it. It's Matt Nagy and Justin Fields show from week 1. If it's week 2, week 3, week 4, I can't really say how competent I am, in Andy Dalton playing against, like you said, Myles Garrett and Clowney and all of them, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, who just had a whole fucking episode about Darnell Mooney and is very upset with Bears fans, which is the perfect opportunity for us. If you want to cover Darnell, that's fine. Whatever sorry ass nickel has to cover Allen Robinson and Godwin and all them by themselves, by all means, go for it if you want to prove your point. But for me, I could see them going 13-4. I think I want to be realistic with you. The teams I had them losing to, if Rodgers is there, I say Fields loses his first game against Rodgers. And then I say we go to Lombardi later in the year. And while he's on his rookie of the year season, he takes them down in Lombardi. But I have 1 L to the Packers. I'm sorry, but with Odell back too, Clowney, I got to give an L with them. And there were a couple other teams that I thought, might get the best of us. But I think this could be a 12-plus win season if Fields is starting from the jump. There's really only one thing with me, and I want to talk about it because no one is speaking on it. The only thing I think that can save Aaron Rodgers right now in staying in Green Bay is a Julio Jones trade. Because Julio Jones is without a doubt on the move. There's talk about the Ravens, the Titans, and all these other people, and Green Bay has just been quiet. They're not asking for a lot. They're asking for a second, a third round pick. I think if the Packers GM is by any means competent, fuck it. If Ryan Pace is by any means competent, I would go after him too. If you could have that dynamic trio, Darnell Mooney, Allen Robinson, and Julio Jones for Justin Fields, I don't know how the salary cap would work with all that, but it would be amazing. But as of right now, there's nothing for me that can save the Packers in saving Aaron Rodgers for at least another season other than Julio Jones.
Yeah, even with Julio Jones, I honestly, I look at that situation, and sometimes a player is just done, and it's almost like the point of no return. You can't just make a desperation heave at this point if you're the Packers GM, Brian Gutekunst, and say, oh, wait, hold on, Aaron, right before you walk out the door, we're going to bring you Julio Jones. That's not going to reel him back in. From the reports we've heard from Schefter and Rappaport, he is extremely fed up because it hasn't been just the prior years. It's been 20 years of football for him. They haven't drafted a wide receiver in since he's been the quarterback in the first round, since he's been the quarterback with Green Bay. They haven't drafted an offensive player in the first round since he's been, they've drafted one offensive player.
It was Jordan, wasn't it?
Years, and it was Jordan Love.
Yeah.
So if you're him, it's no, you've done jack shit for me in the past, 15, 16 years, however long he's been in Green Bay. You can't just try to reel me back in now. That's not how the world works. All right. That's not how you're going to do it. I think he's completely done. Now, the question is, does he go to Denver? Does he become the full-time host of Jeopardy? I think he's at a point where he doesn't care. He stuck it to Green Bay. He said, all right, you want to go get Jordan Love? Totally fine. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw 45 touchdowns and win the MVP. Okay? That's what I'm going to do. and then I'm going to walk the hell away because we could have won the Super Bowl if you got me some freaking talent in the first round. That's probably what he's saying to himself. So he knows he owes nothing to them. He has nothing to give. And quite frankly, the Packers don't deserve him. I don't want to give a lot of credit to Aaron Rodgers, but they don't deserve him whatsoever for everything that he's done for them. And they have, given nothing back to him. They're also one of the quietest teams in free agency year after year. They do nothing for him. He has every single right to be frustrated. And as Bears fans, we're just sitting here happy because it just feels good because that man has terrorized us for years. I mean, he terrorized me as a child, year after year. The Randall Cobb play will forever, I cried in my room after that play, after Chris Conte screwed it up, time and time again. The Thanksgiving Day, or I don't know if it was Thanksgiving, but it was that one night he threw 6 touchdowns in one half. I mean, to have that man out of the NFC North is extremely refreshing. But I want to talk about this year too, because you talked about 13-4. I got them going 11-6, but there's kind of a narrative because everyone's freaked out by the schedule. They have the third hardest schedule in the NFL, and they construct the strength of schedule based off of the opponent's win percentage from last year. Well, listen, teams change. All right. Obviously, if you look at the end of 2021, if you fast forward to January of this year, I can promise you look back at their schedule and they won't have the third hardest schedule if you look back at the overall record of the teams after this year. Teams change, teams will regress, some teams will progress, but it's not like people shouldn't be daunted and shouldn't be writing them off. And really, I don't think you should ever really change somebody's schedule based off of their strength of schedule. Like, I really just don't think that should be a thing. Like, it really doesn't make sense to me. Every game in the NFL is competitive. Like, any team can win on any given Sunday. The whole strength of schedule thing, it really doesn't speak. It doesn't matter a lot to me, but people always want to get worked up about it and they want to base their predictions off of it. But just for those out there who want to put them at 6-11, who want to put them at those lower records because of the strength of schedule, don't do that. It's illogical and it doesn't make sense because, like we've talked about last year, Mike, like regardless of whether the offense is starting Andy Dalton for X amount of games, regardless if Justin Fields isn't picking things up early, even though he will, the defense is going to keep them in every game. I mean, Mike, they were in every game last year. Going into the third quarter. I mean, they had an ability to win every single game last year with few minutes left in the third quarter. I mean, there's maybe one or two that they didn't have a shot in. I can't think of them off. Maybe the Rams game is one of them.
The Green Bay game towards the end of the year.
Yeah, that's one of them, and the Rams game. I think those are really the only two I can think. But even though that Rams game, they were only down 1 score in the third quarter, and then Nick Foles couldn't do jack shit. So they're going to be in every single game, Mike. And, they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year with Nick Foles.
Hey,
like,
we're the champs, baby.
Like, we're the champs, baby. That's what I'm talking about. So I have really no problems with your 13-4 prediction, especially if Fields starts week 1. I think it's totally realistic.
And can we be completely honest here? And I'm gonna be real. I love Aaron. I've always loved Aaron. I hate that Aaron's in Green Bay, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And if Aaron wants out, he's all good with me. We're cool peeps. I hope he wins 3 more Super Bowls wherever he goes.
Wow.
Because he's just that great of a player, man. I just love to watch Aaron Rodgers. It's just so unfortunate that, he's in Green Bay. But let's read the stats real quick. We got career-wise. Okay, not even career-wise. We're going to talk about at the age of, I believe he's like 35 or something. 4,299 yards and 48 touchdowns in 2020. With 1 star wide receiver. The others, they're all right. Nothing special. If you put him on the Bears, that's over 5,000 yards easy in the season. We're talking career now. We got 9-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro, 1-time Super Bowl champ, which is very upsetting that it's only 1 time. 51,000 plus yards, 412 TDs. You have State Farm, and you have a full-time gig at Jeopardy. You're telling me this man won't retire? And a Super Bowl ring. You're telling me that's not a question? Green Bay has to make a move. They have to figure out what they're doing because not only will this man sit out for a year and fully re-heal his body, you've seen that with Gronk and others in the past. Le'Veon Bell is a different situation, but I mean, for his issues, going to the Jets just never helps anybody. But if he were to sit out for a year and then finally get traded, he'd be coming off an MVP year, fully rested, and he'd be amazing anywhere he wants. The ball is in Aaron's court. He can do whatever he wants in my mind right now. I mean, there is no doubt about it. For the Packers right now, and you made an amazing point too with the schedule. I would say our schedule would be somewhere around 10 if Aaron Rodgers is taking off 2 of those games.
Good point. Good point.
It's one of those things where it's like, oh, yeah, well, you have to play Green Bay twice. So that's why you have the third hardest schedule. You got to play Tampa again. You got to do all these things, Cleveland and all that. Take Aaron out of that. Okay, it's fucking Blake Bortles. We're straight. You look at the Lions. They kind of take into account that Matthew Stafford is there based off the 2020 stats. He's gone. It's Jared Goff and some guy who is horrible at making pep talks. I don't know if you've heard. Remember when he first got hired in his interview?
The kneecaps.
Yeah,
thing.
He's a fucking.
What the world? He's a bozo.
Weirdo, bro. Dude, if I was one of the players in that locker room when that was said, I would have just been like, what a weirdo. Kirk Cousins is 2 of them right there. I'll say this, Kevin. I was terrified that the Vikings may have been able to land Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. And I would go as far to say that they would win the division 9 times out of 10 in the next 10 years had they landed them with Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Justin Fields, and Justin
Jefferson. Oh, God.
I left him at the end because that's the most important. You got that no look going, but that man, I was in fear. And my boy Robbie, my old-time lacrosse teammate, huge Giants fan. When I'm turned 21 in a few days, I promise you, I'm going to the bar and I'm buying the man 3 rounds because they have my heart. They have my heart. I'm so happy for the Giants. I hope they have an amazing year. But like you said, there is no doubt in my mind that this schedule being the 3rd hardest is bullshit. It really is, because it's also the fact that you're also playing the Super Bowl champs. But
yes.
We beat them.
You beat them last year.
Right. We beat them before with Nick Foles. We had Tom Brady thinking it was still 4th down. Ball was turned over. This man was gone. Yeah, 4. Excuse me. But no, sorry, Tommy, you're getting bounced again. It's not happening. We played the Steelers, but here's my thing with the Steelers, and it's what, my boy Chacha, huge Steelers fan. I tell him all the time, you're only going to go as far as Big Ben takes you. And I really don't think Big Ben's going to have a completely healthy year. Because they have the number 1 hardest schedule in the league. They have to play the Browns twice. You have Clowney and Garrett running at them. I think it's going to be a very, very tough year for Big Ben. I just, before we wrap this up, I just wanted to ask you the following question. Kevin, Super Bowl champs, what's the probability? We're talking about this conversation, a couple months ago, it was, where are we going? What's the direction? What's the narrative? Right now, for me, the narrative is Super Bowl champs. What's it going for you?
Wow. This year?
I think for me, right now, it's on the table. It's definitely on the table. What else are we going to do? Is this a development year?
Yeah, no, you're right. So there's a few ways to look at this. Number one, it can't be a development year because you have a lot of old players signed under contract. Like it can't be development year. Like you're all in. You're all in the playoffs. That's why you signed Robert Quinn last year. That's why you have Akeem Hicks. You have older guys. You can't afford to make this a quote unquote developmental year, which is again part of the reason why I want Justin Fields to start week 1. But a rookie quarterback has never won the Super Bowl in NFL history. Now that could change. History gets made every year. How many no-hitters have been thrown in the past week, Mike? I mean, it does like, I don't, is it unlikely? Sure. But history can be rewritten. And when you have a player, like, again, you have to think about the certain player we have. We have Justin Fields, who's been there, who is capable of doing that. And then you look at the roster around him. So let me riddle you this. Look at Justin Herbert from last year. Okay. Right. Just listen to his stats, 4,336 yards, 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I think it is 66.6% completion percentage, and they went 6-9 because they didn't have a great team around them.
Right.
If Justin Fields gives you those numbers, 4,400 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions, it's hard to imagine they're not the number 1 or 2 seed in the NFC with the defense that they have, with the weapons they have, running the football, and some of the offensive wide receiver weapons that are really dynamic, and the tight end weapons as well. Like if he gives you Justin Herbert numbers from last year, which I think he's capable of doing, Mike, you're not talking about anything crazy when you talk about the Super Bowl. And then we've mentioned in the past, like come playoff time, if we get there, the defense is going to keep him in every game. The defense is going to give him a shot. The defense gave him a fucking shot against the Saints with Mitch Trubisky. And God knows what happens, Mike, if Javon Wim catches the football. I mean, God knows what happens. Like in a game where we were the 7th seed and they were the 2 seed or whatever. I don't know what they were. So this is like, it's possible. And like, I always get ahead of myself and people always call me biased and crazy for saying that these things are possible. But again, you have to look at the factors and compare the situations. Number one, the defense is there. Number one, they have, the weapons to do it. And number two, they have the quarterback. So I don't know, Mike, you're not crazy. The narrative is there. You're not crazy for thinking that they could be Super Bowl champs. Is it potentially far-fetched because they have a rookie quarterback? Yes. But if he starts to play the way Justin Herbert played down the stretch, in the beginning of the year, those conversations will be had very early on. And he's capable of doing that early. So, I'm not going to write it on my wall that they're going to win the Super Bowl, but is it within the realm of possibility? Yeah. Crazy as it sounds, I think it is.
I think one of the things it'll actually come down to, and I think it's not talked about enough, I actually haven't heard anything about it since, he was brought in, is Sean Desai. I think a lot of it is going to come down on him. I think a lot of it is going to be, oh, well, Vic Fangio's gone and you haven't been great ever since he left. That's not true at all. For people that don't understand football, let me tell you what 8-8 means when you don't have a fucking quarterback. It means that you are one piece away from actually being a legitimate title contender. To somehow go 8-8, to somehow lose 5 to 6 games straight and end up in the playoffs with 2 to 3 different quarterbacks, because there was a small period, some very small frame where what's his face got thrown in when Nick Foles got hurt because they didn't want to throw in Mitch. I totally forget his name. Third stringer. I forgot who we have. Doesn't matter.
Tyler Bray?
Yeah, Tyler Bray. We had 3 quarterbacks make an appearance, and not one of them wants to be, or not one team wants any of them on any team right now. The Bills even made a statement saying, we do not want Mitchell Trubisky. We are just doing him a favor. Like this is just a landing spot for him to learn and develop. We're all in on Josh Allen, so on and so forth. Which that quarterback room is insane though. You have Jake Fromm, Mitchell Trubisky, and Josh Allen. It is a weird room. But for me, it's all about Sean Desai, and for him to be here as long as he has, I think he's been here since like 2013, if I'm not mistaken. He was a DB's coach, a safeties coach. You've seen you had a little bit of Lovey because I think he was here in 12 as well. You had 1 year of Lovey. You have Vic Fangio. You have Chuck Pagano. And I just think that's enough. That's enough for me to be competent with you. If you have, if this was a fresh defense, a lot of young guys, no one's really proven, I'd say I'm a little bit, skeptical on it. Mm-hmm. But when you have leaders, Akeem Hicks, which what he can do, Jalen Johnson is someone I think could be potentially a leader going into this year. I love his attitude. I love what the talent that he brings. He's a great individual. Kyle Fuller was one of those quiet guys, Eddie Jackson's a leader, Khalil Mack's a leader, Robert Quinn. Me and you have our beef with Robert Quinn, but he is a leader on this team. Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan is still here. We got the leaders for a young guy to come in here and start taking demands with these guys to be better, to be great. And I think that's honestly what they wanted. For me, like we said, back-to-back 8-8 years, you went 12-4 with Mitchell Trubisky, your first year as a head coach. If Justin Fields is starting week 1, and just to cap it all off, there's no doubt in my mind that we're fucking Super Bowl champs by 2023.
Oh, by 2023, yes, without a doubt.
We're going to be in the conference championship. I'll book it right now. Barring injury, we are in the conference championship this year if Justin Fields is starting by week 1.
The other thing to remember too, real quick, before we wrap this up, is like you look at the teams that were in the playoffs last year. Okay, let's look at the Packers without Aaron Rodgers gone, who is in the conference championship. Let's look at the Saints, who don't have Drew Brees anymore. You can write them off. The Seahawks are pretty much a toss-up every year. The Rams, yeah, they have Matt Stafford, but is he going to stay healthy? Is he going to stay healthy? It's kind of a question mark what they can do with him in LA. And then Tampa Bay, yes, Tom Brady is there, but I think if the Bears play them, that's a winnable game. And he's a year older. Not like it probably doesn't matter because the guy's freaking Thanos, but it's It's open, Mike. It's open. Like the conference is open. And that's what's different. Like you compare this to the AFC. Like I don't think I'd be having these conversations if we were talking about the Bears being in the AFC because you got Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. Like you got a lot of young quarterbacks over there. But Justin Fields, not only will he dominate the NFC North, he has the ability to dominate the conference for the coming years because all the guys who recently have been, dominating the conference in the past are old. Rodgers, Breeze, Brady. It's wide open. So yes, it's not crazy. If you look at the teams in the NFC and you kind of evaluate that, I mean, shit, nobody from the NFC freaking East is going to do anything. I'm sorry. The Eagles just aren't there. The Cowboys are fraudulent as usual. The Giants aren't there yet. And the Washington football team doesn't even have a quarterback right now. So yeah, it's wide open, Mike. It's wide open. So, shit, man, I'm with you. Let's lock it in. I'll place the bet right now. Let's walk over to Rivers Casino, or not walk. It's kind of far. It's a drive over to Rivers Casino. Lock in the futures bet. I wonder what their odds are right now to make the conference championship because you better put it in now before they start to win some football games because those odds will go down. Would they go down or up?
I think they'd go up.
They technically go up. Yeah.
So go up, but your bet would go down.
Yeah. So I'm gonna look up the odds right now, but Yeah, I mean, I'll lock it in.
While you're looking that up, did anybody get anybody significant in the NFC at all? Like, is there, like, if we're thinking about the young QBs in the NFC, I really can't. You have Kyle Trask is in Tampa.
Kyler Murray's one. Sorry, I had to throw it out there.
Kyler Murray is definitely there. But I'm really, and that's another thing too. They're also putting in, we're JJ Watt is on the Cardinals now. I believe we do play the Cardinals this year. And they're taking that into consideration. Yeah, JJ is going to be gone by week 5, torn pectoral. I'm calling it right now. See ya. Happens every year. Very unfortunate. I don't like to joke about injuries, but I mean, let's just be real here. It's not happening. But yeah, I mean, Justin Fields, I feel like we're the only one with a foreseeable future that can actually do something right now. You look at Tampa Bay. Tom leaves. Is it Godwin or Goodwin? Godwin. He's gone. He's gone as soon as that franchise tag is up. He doesn't want to be here with Mike Evans. I truly feel that. I think he wants more of the reps, more of the receptions, all of that stuff. I just don't see them in the foreseeable future. Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston, Mr. 30 for 30, not concerned whatsoever. No. Jordan Love, not concerned at all. It was different. It was different back then when they picked up Rodgers because you knew Rodgers was a dog. You know what I mean? But with Jordan, I've never seen anything about Jordan.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're right. It's open. And I looked at their odds. They're plus 2,200. They have the same exact odds as the Washington football team to make the conference championship. I mean, that's absurd to me. I mean, on
my birthday, on Monday, I will walk with you or drive with you to the casino and we will play some. I will drop $300 on that bet. Book it right now.
I think a $300. I think that would make you a lot of money, Mike. That would make you a very good amount of money.
I start more than a podcast. I start a brand.
I think their over under though on wins is like 7.5. I mean, I'll put $1,000 on 7.5. I mean, that's their over under on wins in a year that we have 17 games. 7.5. Are you fucking kidding me? They went 8-8 last year with Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky, and they lost 6 games in a row, and they're gonna win only 7.5.
Right.
Get that shit out of here. Put a fucking million on it, Mike.
Right. I'll do it. But with that being said, Kevin, my boy, thank you for coming on. We will be back having Kevin on at some point, with the next new Bears news that we're hopefully going to be hearing. Kevin's got some big stuff going on. If Kevin wants to take a second and talk about his, Bears Nation podcast, what's going on with Twitch, what's going on with Daz Newsome. That's a new interview he just had. If you want to check that out, Kevin, your floor is yours. Talk about all that.
Yeah, real quick, we had Daz Newsome on our podcast, so you can find that on YouTube at Bears Nation Podcast on YouTube. It's just a little clip of him talking. We only had like 12-minute, or actually like 15-minute conversation. It was really good, though. Really a lot of good stuff. He's a really cool guy, really funny, personable. I think fans are going to love him. But yeah, you can find our podcast too, Apple Podcast, Spotify, same as Mike's podcast. You can find anywhere you listen. We both use Anchor, so it's distributed everywhere. But yeah, I mean, we've got a video coming up soon with Daz that we're really excited about. So we're trying to get some more players on too. But yeah, check out Bears Nation Podcast if you guys ever get the chance.
That link and all that stuff will be in the comments below. I'll leave it. I'll book it. I'll put it in there. You guys will find that. Kevin, thank you for being on, my boy. It's been a pleasure as always.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, man.